Geography and You presents.
Hello and welcome back to the GNY Live podcast series, The Air We Fear. I'm your host, Hiteshika, joined by our discussant, Dr. Shulagna Chattopadhyay, Editor-in-Chief, Geography and You. Today, we are honored to welcome Senior Advocate Raj Panjwani, a practicing lawyer for NGT and the Supreme Court, a leading voice in environmental law and a staunch advocate for air pollution control. Appointed as the amicus curiae by the court in several landmark cases, Mr. Panjwani has played a key role in shaping India's environmental policies and legal frameworks. His hugely popular book on animal laws in India has seen multiple editions and significantly contributes to legal awareness in environmental matters. Today, we will explore the legal remedies to pressing issues such as enforcing air quality regulations, tackling stubble burning, and ensuring accountability through legal instruments. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Chattopadhyay to lead the conversation. Over to you, Dr. Chattopadhyay.
Thank you, Hiteshika, for that introduction. Mr. Panjwani, we are delighted to have you with us today at the studio. It's remarkable that you've taken time out for our listeners. It marks your deep dedication to the cause.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me. But I would not say it is dedication. It is more that I heard of the organization, and I felt that no, if I can contribute in some manner, then I should step forward. And that is how I'm here with you all.
Thank you, Mr. Panjwani. To take the first question, so there is so much happening, but so little spoken about things. We don't really hear too much about air pollution or how we can mitigate or, the kind of problems that it's creating for so many people. So you're a lawyer by profession and you've chosen to fight for the environment. But most environmentally conscious individuals are, they're anti-development, considered anti-development. So what is your view?
Yeah, if asking or knocking the courts of justice to ensure that the laws are complied with, that the principles which we adhere to and claim all over the international flora and fauna, that we are great champions and propounders of sustainable development. And it is those principles you come and seek from the court. Why? Because there are quite a few projects, there are quite a few activities which are definitely, I would say, that positively undermine the principles. And if knocking on the courts of justice to seek that the principles are adhered to, that the laws made by the government are adhered to, that the policies, the guidelines, we have got a whole plethora, we can go into all the details, and that they should be adhered to. And if that is anti-development, then yes, I'm anti-development.
Okay, because when trees are cut to broaden highways and trees are cut to, for example, we have the ridge in Delhi, the ridge area in Delhi, and Mr. Panjwani, you know what is happening with the ridge area.
Yes.
So that would, environment and development works on a very fine balance. Actually, that is a very, very difficult situation because you do need housing on one side. At the same time, destruction of the ridge is why we are suffering air pollution, to such an extent because there are no green spaces left any longer. In that context, do you feel that environment should take a back seat and development should take a front seat, or there should be methods of development, in a sense, green development? I mean, I don't like to use it because there's also greenwashing that goes with it. But what are your views on that?
I think ridge, no two ways about it, is a pivot for the ecology of the Delhi region. There can't be any two ways or two thoughts or even views on it because it's a barrier which keeps the hot winds and the sands from Rajasthan coming towards Delhi. Now, if you erode that ridge, then obviously there will be impact. But that erosion need not necessarily be undertaken. And if there's a dearth of land, yes. If there's no other place to carry on, let's say, a police colony coming up, or farmhouses. I am aware of so many farmhouses. So it's just not the ridge. Ridge is just an extension of the Aravallis. So when we are talking of the ridge, we are talking of the Aravallis. Of just the spur of the Aravallis enters Delhi and goes towards the president's house.
Correct.
And more then towards Karol Bagh. And also towards the Delhi University, which is also on the ridge, by the way. If we take away the ridge, Delhi would be chaos. Therefore, to say that ridge can be sacrificed, it is illogical. Ridge can never be sacrificed. Therefore, the only way for the rest of Delhi to survive and to sustain is to preserve ridge. You want the whole of Delhi to be washed out in an ecological disaster? Sure, get rid of ridge. What's so great about it? Then the whole Delhi goes. If Delhi goes, then what is the purpose of the ridge? I mean, it's a very weird way of looking at things. And there have been, and let's see, let's put it in another form. Ridge is something which, because the two cases had come up almost at the same time, that is the beginning of, to a certain extent, the beginning of environmental litigation in the Supreme Court. Was the first was the Taj trapezium.
Correct.
The second was the Delhi Ridge.
MC Mehta.
Yeah. And then came the Yamuna. So these are three things on which the entire, what we call, and that point of time, the sustainable development principles had also were mushrooming out and people were getting aware of it. And yes, the courts played a very important role in making the people aware of those principles, which not remained on paper. If you look at subsequent legislation, the last legislation was, it said the National Green Tribunal Act. The Act recognizes and says that the NGT shall enforce and shall follow the principles of sustainable development. So there are about 3 or 4 principles of sustainable development. We can deal with those principles subsequently. But yes, therefore, ridge is important. But if not the people, basically the government which is doing it, I'll be very honest about it. Because it's the government which is supposed to enforce the laws. And when I say the government is doing it, because the government is either the actual one who is destroying the ridge, or is the one which is shutting its eyes in the destruction of ridge. In either the case, the responsibility and the blame rests squarely on the shoulders of the government in power, whichever. I'm not concerned with the political party, because political parties come and go. I've seen so many shades of them, and there are so many incidents which I can narrate where one political party comes in and they are for development, so-called development. And when they were in the opposition, they were opposing it. But once they come into power, they adopt the same thing. So you have to play it either way. But speaking as far as ridge is concerned, ridge will remain and has to remain whether we like it or not.
Amen to that. Hopefully the ridge shall remain the way it is. Now, you did talk about governments. And so here, if we bring in the center and the state, the fact that we have different vehicular norms in UP, and it's different in Delhi, and there are different norms for industries as well, and everything. So basically, across the border of Delhi, so how do you work with a framework where you're talking about air pollution in Delhi, but the adjoining areas of Delhi they're not on the same page? So here you have to discard cars in diesel car 10 years and in petrol cars 15 years. And UP, you don't have to do that, except for the NCR region, of course. So, basically, one, I'll bring in another aspect of how it is becoming a burden for the middle class and how this turnaround every 15 years is pushing up passenger car sales astronomically. So what is your view? How do you resolve?
Okay, I'll put it. How should I? Let me phrase it in a proper fashion. We think as if the courts are the ultimate reservoir of wisdom, that they have got an answer to every question. End of the day, the people manning the courts are nothing else but human beings. And being human beings, they're bound to be influenced by various factors. And as a judge, if you are sitting on the bench, you would be influenced with what you have been made aware of, and also what is there in the written word which is in the files before the court. So when we talk of limiting the period of the life of a vehicle 10 or 15 years in this region, it is not a kind of a figure which has been taken off from a hat. It is based on the figures which were made by the various reports which were placed before the court. That this is the ideal situation or the best possible solution to the problem of vehicular pollution. Vehicular pollution is just one of the components. So would a judge say, no, the report is talking about A, but we feel it should not be A but should be B. Now, if he does that, he'll be considered whimsical.
Okay.
Because his words or his pen has to derive the source, the sustenance from the reports. So if we look into the reports at that point of time, which were from where, I don't want to name the organizations, yes, there were some reports which were against. They should not be there. Instead of 15 years, it can be 25 years. Why 15 years? Why 10 years? A line has to be drawn. And speaking for myself, as I'm more of a ecologist or an environmentalist, the figures are based upon a very simple principle which we follow. That is, if I have to err, I'll err in favor of environment than otherwise.
Okay.
So I remember this because Justice Y.K. Sabharwal at that point of time, he was the Chief Justice and arguing a case. And so it was a question of, we are talking about the CRZ notification, whether it should be 500 meters or 300 meters. And there was a challenge and there was an amendment at that point of time where the government had tried to reduce it and
But
it
which
was
they
challenged.
did consequently.
Yeah,
They did reduce it
they did.
later.
Excuse me. So he had mentioned this. Yes, I know I'm here, I'm sitting here, I'm not a scientist, but if I have to make a mistake, I better make a mistake in favor of the environment. So that's what he did. And that's how I look at it. Therefore, whether 10 years or 15 years, now their report which says, no, it is not logical, the court had made a mistake. Court has not made a mistake, please. Court is a reflection of the material which is before it. And when there are two views possible, then the view which favors environment, they normally adopt it. Therefore, I don't blame the courts for it. But yes, because what they are saying becomes the law, to that extent you can blame them. Whether what you are saying is law. Because particularly, especially in the Supreme Court, because what they lay down is the law of the land.
Correct.
It is just not the law of the state, it is the law of the land. So that's where we can have a difference of opinion, but normally I don't think that judges are in a capricious manner or arbitrary manner come up with figures normally it is not so.
Correct. But from just to understand in perspective what is happening right now, so in about 10 years' time, we have doubled our passenger cars. So the volume has increased so much. So any amount of Bharat 3, Bharat 4, so although the unit of emission is perhaps lower, the volume is so large so that the emission is now 40%, as we are told.
Whatever the gains we had, we lost.
So in favor of environment hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So doesn't the court have can we revisit? Does in a sense police reopens cases? Can the court revisit its decisions in certain cases?
Court has got full power and well within its right to revisit any decision. Now, the only hitch which comes up is you have to look at the phase which the judiciary is going through. there was a phase that the judiciary would also intervene in policy matters. Now, this number of vehicles being sold could very well be because, let's put it this way, once bitten, twice shy, or whatever. They have taken a call, they have been criticized for it. Now, if they reduce the number, you think the criticism will stop, or they'll get accolades, or what will happen?
I don't know. You just said in favor of environment, so I'm just talking.
That's what I'm saying. So therefore, we have to, because we are, at the end of the day, whether it's you or judiciary or the government or anybody, we all have what we call the legitimate expectation, the principle of legitimate expectation. That the judge rules and the rest of them bow down to what he has ruled is out of legitimate expectation. That the expectation is that what is falling down is the true and the correct way forward. It is that expectation. Now, if you erode that legitimate expectation, then whether you are a judge or otherwise, nobody will accept it. Therefore, the judiciary as of now, and I'll be honest about it, is going through a phase where they know they have the power, they know they can do it, but whether the people would be willing to swallow the pill of the consequences of a judgment, like for example limiting the number of vehicles.
And things like congestion tax and whatever else.
I can give you another example. On some of these yatras, there were number of vehicles, like for example Rohtang Pass. The court had intervened and said the number of vehicles going to a Rohtang Pass should not be more than 500 or some figure was fixed per day.
Okay.
In opposition to thousands of vehicles which used to go. There was complete chaos. People don't know what to do with it. Now, is that the role of the court? Now, should the court... And the court was cursed. It was literally cursed. What are you trying to do? I'll give you another example, which I am arguing, which I am finding difficult to make the judges accept it, is the number of pilgrims who should visit during a yatra, whether to Badrinath or Kedarnath. There are numbers which are fixed. Earlier, the government itself had fixed in 2019 or 18 or something like that.
Something like the carrying capacity.
Carrying capacity, yeah. Number was fixed at 13,000. And sometime in May 2024, they withdrew that order.
Oh.
So, and why? Because nobody was following it. And that was not an order passed by the court. So we came to the court and said, this was the number you had fixed. You had promised to carry out the carrying capacity, which has not been done till today. So we have just carrying on endlessly, and the sheer volume of municipal solid waste and plastic waste and the number of ponies and other things which are moving around, and they're in a very bad situation. I mean,
Yes,
I've seen the hygienic conditions out there. So it should not be done. But the court is yet, they know it, that what I'm saying is right. But to say that no, you had 13,000, so I'm hoping that and then a committee was appointed. The committee said, okay, so the carrying capacity is not there, it should be 11,000. So they reduced it. The committee itself reduced it. But they are yet debating whether we should actually venture out and fix such a figure. And who's going to control? How it will be controlled? And we are talking of Badrinath.
Yeah.
And you say only 13,000 per day, though earlier figure was there, but it was just on paper. Nobody bothered about that figure. So when we look at or for example, let's say tomorrow somebody goes to Supreme Court and say Kumbh Mela should not be more than 5 lakhs. And here's a study, I've done a great study of the past 6 Kumbh Melas, so many toilets, this. But the fact is, even as of now, we are talking more than 6 crore people
Yeah.
have taken a tip.
Yeah.
Now, on one hand is the sheer mass of humanity. On the other hand is so we are labeled as people who are in ivory towers, who don't know what reality is. Whether as a citizen or even as some of the bureaucrats say, they don't know what is that. Let them come and be a collector for a day in the district where mining is going on.
Yeah.
They'll understand what the job of a collector is. So law has got its
Limitations.
I must say the greatness, the glory, but it doesn't have great teeth. It has to depend on various aspects, various components of our establishment for it to be what we to bring toward the majesty of law. I think, believe me, there's no majesty of law as of now.
I mean, I don't know how to put this, but I don't want to say that it's. I don't want to make our listeners cynical in any manner. There is respite in the court, so we still will continue to seek respite from the court because we need sensible people too, and so just to bring this back to the fact that you were saying, one of the cases that related to air pollution, which again, I just like to cite that there was this recent Supreme Court hearing where the amicus advocate Aparajita Singh, senior advocate Aparajita Singh, and there is 113 entry points into Delhi, which was supposed to be monitored and checked and etc. for emission, to control emission in the in the Delhi NCR region. So only 13 of those 113 were being checked and 100 were not being. So thereafter, I think the Supreme Court sent commissioners, who are actually lawyers to check these 100 points. Now, again, the point that you're making is that is it the job of the lawyers to go and stand at checkpoints and see whether it is being done or not, or who should be actually responsible for this? And another question which I want to pitch over here, can we or can the court use technology? Is it possible to use drones, for example, for carrying capacity? Is it possible to use satellites, for example, to determine, the extent where we can determine certain extents?
I'm not a scientist, but definitely science has played a pivotal reports because all the reports which I'm talking about or referred to are based on scientific material. Now, whether a drone can do it at what time of the day, at what time of the night, we can go into all those details, whether satellite part. Yes, all that is there. It's not that they are not aware of it. You mean the government is not aware of it?
Yeah,
Who is not aware of it?
Yeah, awareness is not the problem. It's I get. You're saying implementation is the problem. It just won't get implemented.
Yeah, implementation. Therefore, for implementation, obviously you need staff, you need efficient staff, and you need honest staff. A dishonest, efficient man is of no use. So we must have three things. I'll give an example. Of the pollution control boards in India, I'm talking about India. They have the sanction strength, the vacancies, not the vacancies as of last to last year was over 5,500. The court has been pursuing it that no, you should do something. You can't have such a situation. Only 50% of it have been filled up. In other words, more than 2,500 posts are lying vacant. Therefore, somebody has to take the call. Somebody has to recruit. And mere recruitment per se is not going to solve the problem. You have to you have to teach them. You have to teach them how to use the equipment. You have to teach them how to discipline and not to be dishonest. Only thereafter we can talk about it. Therefore, sending of the lawyers was a positive thing in order to mirror to whom? To the executive, the ground reality.
Okay.
That was it. The ground reality is not for the lawyers to go and work it out. It is for the government and the employees of the government to do it.
Okay, moving on. Air, when we are facing the crop burning issue, those 3 weeks in winter, when the air is, it's unbreathable, to say I mean, everybody talks about it as a gas chamber, and it's unbreathable
Stubble,
to say
you mean.
the stubble burning
Yeah.
issue, the 3 weeks in winter. That point in time, it's an extreme event because the air is, it's a stratified, it's stable, it doesn't, there's thermal inversion, it doesn't move, all of that. And so we know that this is going to be a problem every year. And of course, there are many things that people are talking about and perhaps also taking forward as far as Punjab, Haryana, UP is concerned. But my question to you is that why isn't this declared a disaster and put in the Disaster Management Act
2005.
2005? Why isn't this a health? It is a primary health hazard because you have hospitalizations through that period. So why is it not part of the DM Act?
If we carefully read the definition of disaster, it is a major calamity of natural or man-made impacting human life and environment. So air pollution positively falls within the definition of disaster. But I'm just being the devil. I'm trying to think from a government point of view. Because it's easy to criticize the government, but let's play card from their point of view. That the air pollution by itself is not a disaster. I'm putting forth their argument. It is a result of a disaster. Therefore, when you're talking of air pollution, it is not a disaster. It is a consequence of a disaster. So what you're saying is that if we take the logic forward, that the stubble burning which is taking place in Punjab and Haryana should be termed as a disaster because it leads to air pollution.
Okay.
That's the only way you can link it. That this is, to a certain extent, yes. But the Act defines it as a major calamity, which obviously has to be more or less focused or concentrated at point A or point B, where you can collectively get together and go and deal with that disaster. But because it's so widespread, because if we look at the scheme of the Act, it has got committees. After there's a national committee, then there's a state committee, then the district committee, then right up to a village panchayat. So the reach is there.
Yes.
But the monitoring and implementation of that reach, I don't know if you have checked up. At least I wish I could. I've done it, but I'm sure if I look into it, I don't think there are even enough people to deal with this huge act called the National Disaster Management Act. There are just not so many people which have been employed. Therefore, the best way, and this is a central act being legislated by the Parliament. Therefore, the easiest way for the central government is to shift the entire burden to the respective states. And when we talk to the respective states, state means the collector. At that point where the incident is taking place, obviously then you got a hierarchy where it goes up to the chief secretary. Chief minister is not the state, it goes up to the chief secretary. So then you've palmed it off. I'll not use the word palmed it off. You have said that it is your responsibility, you sort it out. I'm leaving the politics behind, because there can be politics. You can have
of course.
A government in the center, B political party in the state. I'm accepting that both are all same, and because these kind of scenarios, whether you are A party or a B party, doesn't make a difference, because we are talking about health of the people. Therefore, stubble burning, according to me, if we read the provisions of the Act liberally, that with the idea to contain mischief which is being caused to the environment and to human life by the act of human calamities. I am not talking of natural calamity. As a human, that is a mischief. Now that mischief can be easily curtailed under this act. But how far it can be implemented is something which we can all keep on guessing. Because one has to just look up on the government statistics. I'll give an example. Like, for example, Ganga Action Plan. Now, if you look at the framework of the Ganga Action Plan, it is very much similar to the Disaster Management Act.
True.
So you got this committee, that committee, that committee.
Gap 1, Gap 2. We've seen through it all. Yes.
The Ganga Action Plan.
Yeah.
But if you look at the work which got Ganga Action Plan is doing, because I'm dealing with those cases, they are the ones who do not know what is going on. Forget about stopping it or curtailing it, or we are taking steps. They come to know for the first time when the villagers come to the court and say, "Sir, this is what is happening." So the court says, so the Ganga Action Plan, that is the ministry, the Jal Shakti ministry.
Yes.
Will come and say, we look into it and find out. Why didn't you know this? Now you're talking of satellite. You're talking and I'm not talking, and what they were talking about, construction of illegal bridges for the purpose of sand mining.
Oh.
You mean to say that when you got the satellite so-called technology, it's not recording that?
Yes, of course.
Is the collector sitting there is not aware of it? We came to know just now, we'll take the video. This is not your function. This is not it is done. You are supposed to be abreast. Now, if just a limited thing as Ganga, which is bound by two banks of land, we can't do that, and we are talking of stubble burning, which is thousands of miles across the land. But we do get satellite pictures indicating where the golden light or the golden hue
the burn
is imaging.
Yes.
It looks very nice, but it is causing serious health.
So Mr. Panjwani, this brings me to, why I raised the DM Act issue was because I wanted to take you to compensation. If a person, for example, in India, you're not even told that, you're suffering or you're dying because of air pollution in the city. While, there's this case that I'll just talk about. There was a Greater London Authority report. In 2013, a 9-year-old girl died in London. And she was the first case where air pollution was recognized as a cause of death. And so basically, the idea is for our listeners that is there any way that we can awaken our medical fraternity to recognize it as a cause of death and therefore lead us to compensation? Because, there must be something, because we are not doing it to ourselves. It's being done to us.
This is one thing. I'm glad you made me aware of this. I'm going to follow this up very seriously once this is over.
Okay.
Because when we look at the AA ambient air quality management, AAMS regulations and other things, and we look at the figures, there's some figure which I came across while doing a cursory research. I have not done great research on the subject, which say that almost 2 million deaths are caused due to air pollution. In India, I'm not talking about the world. 2 million deaths. Now, if that is correct, then if we look at the jurisdiction of the Green Tribunal, it will be a fit case to take it. But the only hitch, and this is where I need a great help and support from the medical fraternity to establish that the cause of death, obviously cause of death is not there's no direct correlation. As I told you, air pollution is a product of a calamity. Or air pollution may cause some organ of the body to malfunction.
Correct.
And that malfunctioning causes death. Now, the link between air pollution and the malfunctioning of that particular organ, which led to the death of the person, has to be established. And I'm going to look forward for a case like this. And very soon, because I don't think so far anybody has really moved forward. And if any of your listeners do have a doctor or even a doctor who's willing to testify that no, the linkage is there, then believe me, I'll sue. And I will not hesitate even for a second to do that.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So this brings us to the end of our podcast today. Thank you, Mr. Panjwani. I mean, I'm impressed how easy you've made it for, all our listeners. I'm sure they're benefiting. And more, I'm excited that we have a new case coming up with you now. So thank you once again. And Hiteshika, if you can just close it for us for today.
Thank you, Dr. Shulagna Chattopadhyay, for guiding today's insightful conversation. And a special big thanks to Senior Advocate Raj Panjwani for sharing his expertise on legal remedies of air pollution and environmental protection. Today's discussion has provided valuable perspectives on how legal frameworks can drive actions towards cleaner air. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the episode of Air We Fear. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify and YouTube so you never miss an episode. You can also find a detailed blog of this podcast with references and explanation on geographynu.com. Be sure to check it out. Let's remember, clean air is not just a right, it's a responsibility we all share.